Welcome to another deep dive.
Oh, great.
Today, we're tackling a topic you probably think you know, obesity.
Yeah.
But what if everything you thought you knew was wrong? We're going way past BMI
Okay.
and into some groundbreaking new territory with the help of the 2025 Lancet Commission report on obesity.
Exciting.
This report is basically the all-star team of obesity experts, 58 specialists
Wow.
from all over the world.
Yeah.
And they're dropping some serious knowledge bombs.
It really is a game changer. I think most people just assume that obesity is a disease.
Right.
But this report kind of flips the script and argues that just having a high BMI shouldn't automatically put you in the sick category.
Right. I get that extra weight can lead to health
Yeah.
problems. But this report makes it clear that just because you have a high BMI
Right.
doesn't mean you're currently ill.
Exactly.
It's like we need to look at the bigger picture,
Yeah.
not just the number on the scale.
Yeah.
So how do these experts propose we redefine obesity then?
Well, they've introduced this new term, clinical obesity.
Okay.
And it all comes down to this idea of illness.
Okay.
Think of it like how we diagnose other chronic diseases.
Yeah.
We look for signs that organs aren't functioning as they should.
Right.
So clinical obesity means your weight is directly causing measurable, objective organ dysfunction.
Okay. That makes sense. So someone could be overweight, but not have clinical obesity.
Exactly.
It's about whether there's actual present harm happening
Yes.
because of the weight,
Yeah.
not just the potential for future problems, right?
Right. That's the key distinction they're making.
Yeah.
They call it preclinical obesity when someone's overweight,
Uh-huh.
but doesn't have that organ dysfunction. It's more about managing risk factors at that stage.
Okay.
But when it progresses to clinical obesity, that's when it becomes a disease
Gotcha.
requiring direct treatment.
So no more blanket statements about obesity. It's about understanding the nuances and the individual's specific situation.
That's right.
This has to be impacting how doctors are diagnosing obesity. Is BMI even relevant anymore?
Well, BMI is still part of the conversation.
Okay.
It's not the be-all and end-all. The report actually lays out 18 criteria for diagnosing clinical obesity in adults.
Wow. Okay.
We're talking heart failure,
Oh, wow.
recurring blood clots, certain mental health conditions, even lymphedema, things you might not automatically connect with weight.
Wow, that's a long list. What about kids? They have their own set of criteria too, right?
Yep, 13 criteria specifically for children and adolescents. Things like sleep apnea, a specific kind of hip problem called slipped capital femoral epiphysis.
Hold on. Slipped capital femoral epiphysis.
Yeah, so basically where the ball at the top of the thigh bone slips out of place, and even certain metabolic markers. That can signal if their body is struggling to process energy properly.
That sounds serious.
It can be, especially if it's not caught and treated early. The fact that it's included as a diagnostic criterion for clinical obesity in kids shows how seriously they're taking the impact of excess weight on young developing bodies.
This is blowing my mind. It's not just about the number on the scale anymore.
Right.
It's about looking at all these different systems and how weight might be playing a role in their dysfunction. But with all this talk about clinical obesity and illness, doesn't that risk making people feel even more stigmatized for being overweight?
You're hitting on a crucial point, and the report addresses this directly. They found that weight stigma is actually a huge barrier to people getting the care they need. It can even make health outcomes worse. This isn't about pointing fingers or blaming people. It's about understanding that societal attitudes can have a real impact on an individual's well-being.
So it's about shifting the conversation away from personal responsibility and blame and focusing on creating a more supportive environment where people feel safe seeking help without judgment. This is making me rethink a lot of my assumptions about obesity.
It's definitely challenging conventional wisdom, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. This report is packed with insights into the biological mechanisms at play in obesity. We're starting to see a much more nuanced and complex picture emerge.
Okay, you piqued my curiosity. Let's unpack some of those insights. What are some of the key things this report reveals about how obesity actually affects the body?
Well, they dive deep into how excess weight can literally change the way our organs and systems function. It's not just about carrying extra pounds, but where that fat is stored in the body and how it interacts with our biology.
So where is this fat accumulating and why does it matter?
We have subcutaneous fat, which is the fat just beneath the skin. And then we have visceral fat, which is fat that accumulates deeper around our organs. Visceral fat is the real troublemaker. It's considered metabolically active, which means it releases more inflammatory substances that disrupt normal bodily processes.
So it's not just how much fat you have, but where it is that matters. Is there anything else that surprised you in this report?
Let me think. Well, they dedicate a significant portion to the role of genetics in obesity. There's growing evidence that our genes influence how our bodies store and process fat. And this can make some people more prone to accumulating that dangerous visceral fat, even if they're not overeating.
So genetics, lifestyle, environment.
Exactly.
It sounds like a complicated web of factors that contribute to obesity. This report is really challenging the oversimplified narrative we've all been told, isn't it?
It really is. Obesity isn't a one-size-fits-all condition. It's a complex interplay of biology, behavior, and environment.
All right. So you've got this new understanding of clinical obesity. But how does this shift in thinking impact how we approach treatment?
This new framework really changes the game when it comes to treatment. Now, with the distinction between preclinical and clinical obesity, we can tailor our approach to the individual's specific needs and health status.
So what would treatment look like for someone in the preclinical stage?
For preclinical obesity, the focus is all about reducing risk. Think lifestyle modifications like diet and exercise. Maybe some counseling to develop healthier habits. It's about preventing things from progressing to that clinical stage where we're seeing actual organ damage.
And what about someone who's already been diagnosed with clinical obesity? What are the treatment options there?
In that case, treatment becomes much more targeted. We need to address the specific organ dysfunction that's been identified. For example, if someone has heart failure related to their clinical obesity, we'd focus on treatments to improve heart function.
So it becomes much more personalized.
Yeah,
And focused on treating the whole person, not just their weight.
that's the idea. This approach acknowledges that obesity is a complex condition with multiple contributing factors, and treatment needs to reflect that complexity.
You know, this is making me realize how much the conversation around obesity has been oversimplified in the past. We focus so much on personal responsibility and willpower. But this report highlights the biological and societal factors at play. It's a much more nuanced perspective.
Absolutely. This report is pushing us to think beyond individual choices and consider the broader societal forces that shape our health, like access to nutritious food, the influence of marketing and advertising, even our built environment.
It's a whole new way of looking at things, and I'm really curious to explore it further. But before we jump into the implications of this new understanding for prevention and societal perceptions, let's take a closer look at how clinical obesity specifically manifests in the body.
That's a great place to pick up. This report goes into detail about how excess weight can affect different organs and systems. And that's where things get really interesting.
Okay. You got me hooked. Lead the way. So when we talk about clinical obesity affecting organs and systems, what are we really talking about? Which parts of the body take the biggest hit?
Well, you can't talk about obesity without talking about the cardiovascular system.
Right.
Excess weight puts so much strain on the heart, forcing it to work harder to pump blood.
Right.
And that can lead to high blood pressure, heart disease, stroke, the whole gamut of cardiovascular problems.
And then there's the link between obesity and type 2 diabetes, right?
Yeah.
That seems to be something everyone's aware of. What's going on there?
The connection is definitely strong. Obesity can lead to insulin resistance,
Okay.
which means your body's cells don't respond as well to insulin,
Right.
the hormone responsible for regulating blood sugar.
Gotcha.
And when your blood sugar levels are constantly out of whack, that's when you start down the path toward type 2 diabetes.
It's amazing how these different systems are all interconnected. You start messing with one thing, and it can have ripple effects throughout the body.
Cool. What about breathing? Does obesity affect the respiratory system too?
Absolutely. Think about it. If you have excess weight, especially around your abdomen,
Yeah,
it's physically harder for your lungs to expand fully.
that's true.
And that can lead to shortness of breath, sleep apnea,
Wow.
a whole host of other respiratory issues. Wow, I never really thought about it that way, but it makes perfect sense. You know, you often hear about the link between mental and physical health.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, does obesity directly impact mental health as well?
There's a growing body of research suggesting a strong connection between obesity and conditions like depression and anxiety.
Really?
Yeah, it's a complex relationship, likely influenced by a combination of factors, hormonal imbalances,
Okay.
chronic inflammation, the psychological toll of weight stigma, it's all intertwined.
This is really highlighting how obesity is truly a whole body issue. It's not just about one organ or system. It's about understanding the interconnectedness of everything.
Exactly. And that's what makes this new definition of clinical obesity so important. It's pushing us to look beyond the surface and acknowledge the complex interplay of factors driving these health issues.
Okay, so this report has definitely given us a lot to think about in terms of diagnosis and treatment, but it also raises a lot of questions about prevention. If we're now defining obesity based on the presence of illness, how does that change our approach to preventing it in the first place?
Well, this new understanding opens up a whole new avenue for prevention strategies.
Yeah.
By pinpointing the specific ways excess weight harms the body, we can start identifying risk factors and developing targeted interventions.
So instead of this one-size-fits-all approach to prevention, we're moving toward a more personalized understanding of risk.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that obesity isn't a monolithic entity.
Right.
It's a multifaceted condition with a complex web of contributing factors. And to truly prevent it, we need to understand those individual pieces of the puzzle.
It's like we've been trying to solve this puzzle with only half the pieces for so long.
Yeah.
Now with this new research and this clearer definition of clinical obesity, we could finally start putting the whole picture together.
It's an exciting time for obesity research and prevention, that's for sure.
I bet.
And I think one of the most impactful outcomes of this report could be its potential to reshape societal perceptions of weight.
You're right. For far too long, obesity has been stigmatized as a moral failing, something people should just be able to fix with willpower.
It's been this vicious cycle of shame and blame.
Exactly.
And it's done more harm than good.
But this report challenges that narrative. It highlights the biological complexities of obesity, recognizing that there's a real illness component at play, that it's not simply a matter of laziness or lack of discipline, and that understanding, I hope, can pave the way for greater empathy and compassion.
I think it's a critical step in the right direction.
Yeah.
We need to move away from these simplistic, judgmental views of obesity.
Right.
And start acknowledging the multifaceted nature of this condition.
So let's bring this back to our listener. Why should they care about this new concept of clinical obesity? How can this knowledge empower them?
This isn't just about abstract scientific concepts. This is about taking control of your own health. Understanding the distinction between preclinical and clinical obesity allows you to have more informed conversations with your doctor.
Yeah.
And advocate for the best possible care.
It's like now you have this new lens through which to view your own health and make decisions that are truly in your best interest.
And remember, this Lancet report is just the beginning.
Right.
It's sparking a whole new wave of research and discussion about obesity. We're just starting to unravel the complexities of this condition.
This is what I love about these deep dives.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about presenting the facts. It's about opening up new avenues of inquiry and encouraging critical thinking.
It's about empowering you, the listener, to go beyond the headlines and delve into the nuances of these important topics.
Well said. And speaking of headlines, there's been a lot of buzz about this report in the media. Some are calling it a paradigm shift in our understanding of obesity. Do you think that's an accurate assessment?
I think it's safe to say that this report marks a turning point in the way we approach obesity. It's challenging us to re-examine our assumptions.
Yeah.
And embrace a more nuanced and holistic perspective.
It's like we're finally moving beyond this simplistic calories in, calories out model.
Exactly.
And acknowledging the intricate interplay of biology, behavior, environment, and even genetics.
Exactly. And that shift in thinking has the potential to revolutionize everything.
Wow.
From prevention strategies to treatment approaches and even public health policy.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, this idea that this report is a call to action. What does that mean for all of us? Researchers, healthcare providers, policymakers, and individuals alike. What actions can we take to create a healthier future for everyone?
Well, this report is a powerful reminder that we can't just keep doing things the way we've always done them. We need to embrace this new understanding of clinical obesity and use it to inform our actions. For researchers, that means continuing to explore the complex biological mechanisms at play and developing more targeted and effective interventions.
And for healthcare providers, what role do they play in this shift?
Healthcare providers are on the front lines of this battle.
Yeah.
They need to be equipped with the knowledge and tools to accurately diagnose and treat clinical obesity, while also creating a safe and supportive environment for their patients.
And what about policymakers? What changes need to happen at a systemic level?
Policymakers have a crucial role to play in creating environments that support healthy choices.
Okay.
This means addressing issues like food access and affordability,
Right.
regulating the marketing of unhealthy foods, and designing communities that encourage physical activity.
So it's not just about individual responsibility. It's about creating a society where healthy choices are the easy choices.
Exactly. We need a multi-pronged approach that tackles this issue from all angles: individual, interpersonal, community, and societal.
Right.
And that's where you, the listener, come in.
Right. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by all this information, but it's important to remember that each of us has a role to play in creating a healthier future.
Absolutely. Whether it's advocating for policy changes, supporting research efforts, or simply educating yourself and having open and honest conversations about obesity with your friends and family, every action counts.
So it's not just about understanding the science. It's about taking that knowledge and using it to make a difference. This report is definitely a call to action, and I hope our listeners are feeling inspired to step up and be a part of the solution.
I hope so too. This is an opportunity for us to collectively rethink our approach to obesity and create a world where everyone can thrive.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
Yeah, really interesting.
We've gone from BMI basics
Mm-hmm.
to a whole new understanding of obesity as a complex, multifaceted condition.
Yeah.
This Lancet report is really a game changer.
It is, and it's just the beginning, really. Think of it as a launchpad for a whole new era of research, prevention, and treatment.
It's exciting to think about where this new understanding of clinical obesity will take us. And I think it's particularly relevant for you, the listener, because it empowers you to ask the right questions and advocate for your own health.
Absolutely. Don't be afraid to challenge the status quo, to push for a more nuanced approach to weight and health. This report gives you the knowledge and the vocabulary to do just that.
It's like we've been handed this incredible tool,
Yeah.
this new framework for understanding obesity, and now it's up to all of us to use it wisely.
I love that analogy. Yeah, it's about taking this knowledge and turning it into action, whether that's in our own lives, in our communities, or even at a societal level.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's leave our listeners with a final thought-provoking question to ponder. How might this new understanding of clinical obesity change the way we approach treatment, prevention, and even social perceptions of weight?
It's a question that deserves careful consideration. This report has the potential to spark real meaningful change, but it's up to all of us to keep the conversation going and push for progress.
Well said. And on that note, we want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of clinical obesity. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and perhaps even a new perspective on this complex and often misunderstood condition.
It's been a pleasure exploring this groundbreaking report with you, and we encourage you to continue delving into this important topic.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.